So welcome to Scrapbook Live. I'm Megan Jax. Today is May 15th. It's hard to believe we are halfway through the month of May, but we are. So today's layout is, it's pretty simple and straightforward, at least it should be. But what's nice about this layout is the layout itself should come together hopefully pretty quickly for you. And then you have time afterwards to kind of add those additional details. So I have some of the additional details worked out for mine, but I kind of wanted to wait until I had the whole thing put together, and then I will come in with some of those added embellishments. The other thing here for me, for my particular layout, is I am working with lacrosse photos. So it's a sport, and we do have some lacrosse items. They came as a small, called On the Field embellishment pack that was combined with soccer. That was part of the back to school collection. The challenge is I packed up a lot of stuff, and I think I had those embellishments in my inventory, which got put away in a box as we were getting ready to put our house up for sale and kind of clean things up and get organized. So I couldn't find them this morning. So I'm gonna have to order another pack or two so I can have those available. So I may have some embellishments that are not quite added, but I'm gonna put mine together and I'll show you how I handle sports, especially when Creative Memories at the moment doesn't necessarily have a really robust sports set of items to work with. So if you're a Creative Memories, I don't want to say purist because I'm really not that purist with it, but if you pretty much only use Creative Memories items, I'll show you how I work with it when I'm missing out on some of the detailed items for the sports. But today, if you're catching this on the recording later or you're watching this right now live, if you're watching live, I'm going to drop a link in the comments, which should take you to the handouts for today. If I can press all the right buttons here. Sorry about that. If you're watching this later on the YouTube, you'll see a link in below that will take you to the website that has, my website that has the printable handout. It is just copied and pasted from the Creative Memories blog. There's a QR code over here in the corner if you want to be taken directly to the blog itself, the Creative Memories blog, so you can see any additional photos or maybe something a little bit larger. All right, so I'm gonna switch over here to my overhead camera and we will get started. So as you may have saw from my sneak peek, as I mentioned, we're doing lacrosse photos. So these are photos just from this past weekend. We had a beautiful sunny day for Cody's game up in Cedro Woolley, which is about an hour north of us. The traffic was a little crazy getting there, but it all worked out. So for Cody's lacrosse, if you guys have watched any of my other layouts that we've done with lacrosse, what you'll realize is I pretty much use his team colors, and that's how I handle pretty much all the sports stuff when it comes to my kids. So my oldest son, he played baseball, and so I used a lot of black and gray and crimson because his school colors were crimson and gray. So those are kind of how I handled it. Cody's team colors for his lacrosse, they are the Sea Wolves. And so they're actually they use a killer whale as their mascot, and he's holding a lacrosse stick. But you can see here, this is my guy here in the white helmet. It's kind of a lighter blue that fades up into black. They're blue and black for the most part. I think a little bit of gray in there, but mostly blue and black. So that's what I'm going with. I am using the This Life black and white paper pack. Now, if you didn't know that Creative Memories had a black and white paper pack that coordinates with the This Life collection, next time you're on the website, you need to go ahead and check that out. Just go into the designer paper or type in black and white, use the ampersand, and you should be able to pull it up. I do have a gray tonal paper that is in here. This was from a different pack from a couple years ago, but I do kind of hoard those tonal gray pattern papers. I've got black cardstock, blue cardstock, and then blue orchid. I was looking for a little bit more of a medium blue tone without necessarily going clear down into the lighter shades with more of the baby blue color. I wanted a mid-tone blue. So these are the papers I'm working with. What's nice about the black and white collection is we do have, these three papers are from the black and white collection, and you can see we've got white based patterns on one side, and then when I flip those over, we've got our black tonal papers. So we've got the stars, we've got some chevrons, and more of a kind of a cross-hatchy type textured print. So those are going to work really well. What I have already done is I have actually cut everything into 4x4-inch squares. When we look at our layout, you can tell it's pretty straightforward. We've got some squares on there, and they do use on the right side, they come in and they talk about it in step 3 because they're using the Denim Revival collection that was recently released. They have mats to work with, and they have cut some of the mats to 3x4. So if you have mats and you want to do the 3x4-inch pieces over here, you certainly can. One of the things that I'm going to be doing, because I don't have mats that coordinate with my papers, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just do all 4x4-inch segments on here. And then I have a 1-inch or roughly 1-inch wide border that I will be using along this line here, which will give the illusion that I have a 3x4-inch piece over here, but it's actually all 4x4s in here. So if you don't have your 3x4-inch mats, don't worry about it. I prefer doing it with the 4x4 grid. Just make a 4x4 grid all in the background, because that's going to give me the most flexibility. I can rearrange all my pieces that I want without worrying about the size. And I'll just cover up what I need to give that illusion of the 3-inch wide pieces over here by using that 1-inch border. The other thing is we need to pick out our background paper. In the layout here, they used a piece of designer paper as the background, which gave them the flexibility for a couple of these places. They just left that background paper showing through. I'm going to use black cardstock as my background. I'm not sure how much of that black I'm going to let come through. I might, for the most part, just have it all covered up. I don't know. I haven't decided that, but I have black cardstock, got lots of it, so I figured that'd be a great place to start. So as I mentioned, I have gone ahead and out of all of my papers here, I've got actually 6 different pieces of paper here. I have gone ahead and I have cut 4-inch strips. So they're 4x12. And then I cut them into 4-inch squares. So I've got a whole bunch of 4x4 squares. You can see them all here. I probably have more than I need. I really only need, so I have 18 squares, which actually might be perfectly what I need. I'm having a math moment. We'll see how it goes. If I have more than what I need, I'll just save them for another layout. They go into my black and white folder. I do have, when storing something like the black and white collection, I do have a project folder that I just labeled black and white. I keep my black and white and gray papers in there because I do use those quite a bit. So let me go ahead and set everything aside. For the rest of the layout, the things that they have in here, they have the photos that are all cropped to 3.5-inch square. I do have those photos already printed and cropped down to 3.5-inch squares. I printed them as 4x4s and then cut them down. And then I do have a couple of larger photos that were done as 4x6. This photo here I love. You can see he's kind of jumping as he's throwing the lacrosse ball. I may have to reprint this one a little bit bigger because I think I want a little bit more of a presence on the printed photo. So I will see about doing that later, but all in all, I should be able to get it onto my layout and just swap it out later if I want to. So I've got my photos. I have printed more than I need because I'm going to expand this into a 2-page layout because why not, right? Let's just expand it into a 2-page layout. So part of this layout is going to be taking my different squares, my different colors, and arranging them across 2 pages so that I get a pleasing distribution of the colors and the tones. So to do that, I'm actually going to grab my scrap easels because they're magnetic, and I will be able to put things in place, rearrange them using the magnets to keep them stuck down. That's probably the best thing. I just have my scrap easels. Normally I have them tilted up so that I can, I don't have to like bend over. That's really the nice thing about the scrap easels. It can be a little bit easier on your shoulders and your back when you're sitting at a table and they're more tilted up. But for the camera, I've got them just flattened. I've got some black cardstock. I should have 2 pieces of it. There's the second piece. So here, I've got 2 pieces on here on my scrap easel, got my magnets ready to go, and so I can start putting pieces on. As I mentioned before, I am using all 4x4 pieces. We will have the option, I do have a 1-inch border already punched and ready to go. I used the Star BMC and I punched it in the blue, backed it with the blue orchid. And this is what's gonna give me the illusion of those 3-inch pieces. So let me go ahead and just kind of start putting some of these on. Now I've got a mixture of white-based prints, black-based prints, gray tonal. I've got the mid blue and the blue. So I want to have things kind of distributed evenly. I do have some patterns that kind of repeat. I've got 2 different chevrons. I'm going to try hard to keep those 2 chevrons a little bit separated from each other. And then I have 2 star-based prints, and I'm going to do my best to try to keep those a little bit separated as well. So those are the things that I'm keeping in mind as I'm putting my pieces down here. Start off, I'm just going to drop my magnets on here just to keep those black background in place. I did kind of lay out some ideas before this whole thing started because, you know, I just want to make sure that I'm kind of going into today knowing what I'm doing. Because sometimes I know a little more than other days, especially when I have to mix and match things and distribute and, you know, make sure I like how things are positioned. So next up, I'm going to use the black chevron up here at the top. Then the graph paper. This is the page, I laid out this page before class started, and then what I did is I wrote down in some abbreviations, and I'm now struggling to remember what those all mean. I know I had blue orchid up here at the top. I really like the blue orchid. It was one of the cardstock buffets. It was one of the solid core papers. It's a little bit thinner than our normal paper, but it works really well. It's a kind of designer weight size. When you hear them refer to solid core paper instead of cardstock, that means it's a lighter weight as compared to our cardstock. And let's see, I was going to leave this one as black. And then here I had the stars. Initially I had stars down here, but see how I have the 2 stars next, no, not, they're in the same row. So what I decided to do is I decided to come in with the chevron. I did want a wider based print down here. So I'm going to use the chevron. Now here you can see I've got all of those 4x4 squares in here. Okay, so what I talked about before is to give that illusion to where I have the 3-inch wide pieces over here that kind of is a feature of this layout. I mean, that to me is kind of what's so striking is you've got these 4x4 squares on one side, then you have the 3x4s on the other. It just gives a really nice balance to the composition. So to give that illusion here, you would just come in with a 1-inch border detail. And now all of a sudden I've got that illusion of the 3x4 pieces on this side. But I've got some flexibility. If I wanted, for some reason, if I needed to bring it up to the top, maybe my second page, I'm actually going to redo the orientation. I will have this first page I can leave like such. And maybe my second page, now let me go ahead and start putting some pieces over here. I think I'll come in with my white star. I want my blue, my gray polka dot in here. I may have to cut some more pieces. Sometimes trying to get everything to work out just right can be a little daunting. I need to cut. Oh, I didn't put any blues. Let's put some blues in. That will definitely help. That maybe works. I don't necessarily like that my grids are on the same row. I'm just looking at that from the overhead and just trying to see if I like that or not. Not quite feeling it. Yes, I do have math moments. I see Judy give me like the math moment. Um, I just trying to do the quick math sometimes, and my mind just doesn't want to fire on all cylinders at the moment. I did comment when I put this onto the, well, I think in my original thing here is to say that is my mind has been a little fried these past few months, just because we've been so busy getting ready to sell our house and all of that entails. I think I'm going to go with that. I will leave a little bit of the black. I've got the black over here. I do have some extra pieces here that if I needed to swap some things around, I could, but all in all, I think that's going to be good. So I'm going to just use my magnets to put these in place. I would love to see Creative Memories magnetize a cutting mat, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a cutting mat. I would love to see them have something like the scrap easel available. I would love to see it work, have the one thing about the scrap easel, I do like the scrap easel a lot. I just don't think that their outside measurements are super easy to work with. I think Creative Memories has a better job with their 13 by 13 mat. But here we go. We can see I've got those pieces. Now, one thing I am going to do before I get started with the other things is I'm going to go ahead and create another one of these borders because I want to be able to play around with that a little bit. So I'm going to move my one of my scrap easels out of the way. And this is the other part that I love about having the magnets. I can pick this up and move it, and nothing else it's not going to move. I can just set it to the side and those pieces aren't going anywhere. So to make a repeat of this piece of that border, I'm going to use my blue cardstock. And I'm going to punch the star BMC. I use that one a lot with sports because it's kind of generic. I like that it gives me the little star pieces that I can work in later to other parts of the layout. I also somewhere have the double star punch that is kind of nice to be able to accent additional pieces, but I think it got packed. I see somebody asking where I got the magnets for my scrap easel, and I got them off of Amazon. You can search. I like the clear ones. They do have colored ones, but the clear ones I thought were nice because they're not distracting on your layout. You can still kind of visualize the color and so forth. So I've punched my border. I'm going to trim this to 1 1/8. For the knockout style borders, such as stars, this 1 1/8 is generally the place I would recommend starting if you're trying to get the measurements to how wide that border should be. 1 1/8 seems to be pretty standard. You might have to try it for some of them. And then if you keep a notebook or anything with notes or even a Sharpie, you could even take a Sharpie and just write across the top here that it's 1 1/8 when you want to have an even sided border so that both sides of it are even. Next, I need to use that blue orchid. I've got a strip of that blue orchid and I need to trim it to 1 inch. And that's going to let me back this with that light or the medium blue. And I just had, oh, there it is. It's like I just had the silicone mat here for the borders. Put some adhesive on here. Bring back my piece here. So I've got both pieces here. So I do see Jill is asking about the magnets that come with the scrap easel. Scrap easel does come with some magnets. I decided not to use those particular ones because they were pretty strong and I really liked how these were a little bit less likely, they were strong enough to stick to this without being overly strong, sticking to each other and kind of being annoying in that regard. And I also needed more than what came with the scrap easel, so it was just easy enough to buy those off of, I think like I said, I bought them on Amazon. So here I can have the option that I can come in and do something like that. So see how I've just, altered how those are. I could leave it, I could come in like such. I really don't know what I'm going to do for that regard. In that, in that sense, I still need to create my larger mat. They use one of the large mats out of they use a large mat off of the mat pack, the 4.5 by 6.5. I don't have that because I don't have a mat pack for these black and whites. There was a mat pack with the old black and white collection. I looked through those mats. It didn't work for what I wanted to do. So what I'm actually going to do, I think I am going to come in with, and I've cut some mats out of this diagonal stripe. That's going to give some nice contrast against my papers and my patterns without being too crazy, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead. Diagonal stripe is probably one of my favorites for the mats because no matter which direction you cut it, it's going to work fine. That's the nice part about the diagonal as compared to vertical or horizontal stripes. Diagonal stripes make mats really, really well because you can see that pattern coming all the way through, regardless of whether you got a rectangular, square, or whatever. So diagonal stripes, diagonal plaids, things on a diagonal work well when you're doing these mats. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and trim this. Again, moving set that over there on top of each other. I'm going to go ahead and cut these to 4.5 by 6.5. So what I'll do is I'm going to bring this over and cut it at 6.5 inches wide, and then cut those. So 6.5. This is also, I'm almost positive, out of the black and white pack that's currently available. And then 4.5 by 6.5. I did not do a good job cutting all the way through that. Okay. Normally with the scrap easel, what I really like about it is I have it tilted up, and I could just shove things back. And so I have all this workspace in front of me for my trimmers and punching and all this stuff. And then I can just like toss all my stuff on my magnets up on the easels themselves. So that is one benefit of using the scrap easel, is you have more, it can help you recover your workspace in the middle. So right now, I think I will leave this just going vertical, having those 3x3 segments here in the middle. I'm utilizing more of my square pieces out here on the side. I think that's going to work the best. So I'm just going to tack these. Now, if I want to stick with the basic design that they've got, they had a mat. And a lot of times I just kind of like mirror, but reverse. The mats are probably bigger and chunkier than I need them to be. They do have a pretty chunky mat on the sample. I may dial it back a little bit. I've got a pretty bold pattern on there. We'll see. But now what I can do is I can start working in my 3.5 inch photos into places. Now, one of the things I need to keep in mind is I've got some overlap. So if I'm going to be using these squares where my pictures, my bigger mat overlaps, I need to make sure that I find photos where I can do that, where I'm not so worried about, like this one would actually work really well up here because I've got some blank space on this edge. See, I'm not covering up anything. That might be something to take into consideration before you crop your photos. You might want to wait to crop your photos until you have a better idea where they're going to be placed, because like when I cropped this photo, instead of cropping so much off of like keeping them centered in my square, I could have cropped them so they were a little bit off to one side or the other. And then I would have been able to maybe position it in here a little bit better than I am able to now. So that's okay. I can, if I need to, I can come back and reprint some things. Or maybe I don't care if he covers up this kid. I don't know. We're trying to, I may have to reprint the one that goes right here, or I'm going to have to scoot my photo over a little bit. And you just kind of keep working around. One of the things to note too on this particular layout um, is we have 4x4 photos or 4x4 squares in here. I could peekaboo pocket one of these squares, especially these lower ones or these upper ones where they are fully, will be able to be opened up. I might actually do that on one of them because I can then open it up and have be a little bit of journaling in there. I do see the comment too that I think this photo is actually a little smaller. Remember, I printed these photos and then had to, I printed these photos at home, and I think one of them I trimmed. Nope, that one is saying, I think it is a little wider. I probably did not cut it. I cut it to 4 3/4. That's why. Let me recut it to 4 1/2. I got to cutting, I got to chatting, and that'll probably help my situation over here. Yeah, now I can squeeze him in here. If I leave these as 4x6, I have room for peekaboo pockets. I've got room for peekaboo pockets down here. I could add more photos. In this section here, I can add the title if I want to be able to put some decoration in there. They include the journaling in that segment too. So if I wanted to, instead of using a peekaboo pocket, I could put some journaling in here. Now, one of the things I did do, I found a die set that was a sports die set that has lacrosse dies, which are the metal dies. I use them on my little cutting machine. So I might put those in there. Those type of details I need to go in and add in here as well. I might go ahead and print some more photos too. I think I can get a couple more square photos, especially if I want to stick with having the square photos in these corners. And then I've got some room here to add the date and so forth with this. So a couple of questions I did see that I did separate my scrap easel. So my scrap easel is actually 2 pieces, and you can get a single or you can get the double. I have the double, and for this one I ended up cutting it in half. I have a second scrap easel, which is 2 that are still stuck together. The reason I did this is sometimes I'm only working on a single page layout, and I really just wanted to have the 2 things. The average scrapbooker probably doesn't need to have that. If you don't want, you could just go ahead and cut them in half if you want. Otherwise, you could leave them together, but I have 2 sets of scrap easels because I love them so much. It's called a scrap easel. You can find it on Amazon. You can also just Google scrap easel. I cannot remember the name of the company that makes it, but they do have it on their website, but Amazon was pretty good to get it from. And then I got my magnets from Amazon as well. And you can go to, if you want to go to the Megan and Tessa website, you can go to our favorite things, and there is a link to the scrap easel on Amazon. I'm just scrolling up here because I saw a question. Yeah, Marie's mentioning I cut it to 4 3/4. And there was a question here about the silicone mats. So the silicone mats, they did have the trio of mats that was available if you joined to become an advisor in the first quarter of this year. You receive that as a free gift for joining. That bundle has been made available to advisors, so you can reach out to your advisor about getting that bundle. I do have some available on my website, so if you're thinking of that, you can go to megganjacks.com and then go to the, I think it's under organization. If you go to my shopping page, you go under organization, I think that's where I have the silicone mat bundle. But it is the bundle, so it's the larger 12 by 12 silicone mat, the 13 by 5-inch silicone mat, and then there was like a smaller square a mat that was good for putting cards together. So all in all, this is kind of where this particular layout is going. I've got some additional details to do in here, but you can see where you've got a lot of room for using your mats that maybe have decorative elements to those mats. Like I have right here, I have these are the summer break mats, but you could see coming in here where if I was doing something, I could just cut these mats in half and they just get plopped right in there. I mean, I could use the smiley face if I wanted to, but the mats are great. So this is a good layout. If you sometimes struggle with using your mats, you're going to have lots of areas here to use those. This would be like the journal box. You just chop that in half and you can tuck that in there. It's a little bit bigger than the 3x4, but you can cut it down and make it work. So the mat packs are sometimes great. I like showing ways to use those mats because I know some people struggle with those, but they end up with the mats because they're buying the decorative buy it all bundles. So I have some more detail here I need to finish up to get these things going, but when I start putting this together, well, all I do is I would just like move this one off after I guess I have everything magnet down. I just move it to the side. Or if I had my scrap easel, it would be up here and I would just start transferring things down to the layout itself. So I'm going to remove all the magnets from this. I'll grab my cutting mat. I don't know that I'm really going to need my cutting mat for this layout because the grid just works so well. Everything just gets put into place. Slide it over and start adhering. I don't think I'm going to bore you guys with all of the details that go into putting everything on. It's pretty basic for just adhering all of your pieces into place. Quick reminder of things coming up. I do want to, Tessa and I have our summer scrap challenge, which is going to start at the end or beginning of June. So if you haven't ever participated in that, it's an 8-week kind of bash your stash. We call it a challenge because we do try to challenge you to keep working on your projects through the summer when it's so distracting, right? Summer is all about taking vacations where you're getting more photos or getting together family and friends, gardening if you're a gardener, or maybe doing other projects around your house. So it sometimes can be hard to get yourself back into the scrapbook room, but you want to keep progressing. We're making progress on your projects. So really the summer scrap challenge is all about using your supplies. You don't have to use new supplies. You're going to have to use creative memory supplies. We're going to provide you with a challenge every Monday. And we say it's a challenge. We're literally just challenging you to complete it, not necessarily challenging you with like a hard layout. I mean, sometimes they're pretty simple because we know you just want to get the project done so you can get back out to enjoying the rest of your day. So it's 8 weeks of challenge layouts on Monday. We have throwback projects on Thursday. We're going to kick it all off with a Zoom crop towards the beginning of June. And it's a great sense of community. Everybody is sharing everything that they create. It's really quite lovely. And it's really focused on projects, putting layouts together and actually having photos on those layouts. We want you to have completed pages. So that's really a big focus with Summer Scrap Challenge. Registration is happening now. There's lots of video content. We started adding that in for Winter Frolic this last winter, but we're going to continue doing that in Summer Scrap. So it's all recorded. If you don't have to watch anything live, you can catch all the recordings when your time allows you. So if you're an early bird and you're scrapping at 6 o'clock in the morning before it gets hot outside, you certainly can do that. Or if you're a late night owl, you can catch them later. So that's the big thing coming up for Tessa and I. We just had Power Hour last night. The next Power Hour is going to be June 4th. This Friday is a preview Friday from Creative Memories. So you're going to want to be keeping an eye out for the details of what's coming up next week. So I think that's really all I have for announcements. We will have a Scrapbook Live next week. I am planning to go Scrapbook Lives up until I'll do the first 2 weeks of June. So we'll finish out May, have the first 2 weeks of June, and I will be taking 2 to 3 weeks off of Scrapbook Lives because I will be moving. So we're going to be headed out of town right after Father's Day, headed to Phoenix. So I'm so excited to get back to the Valley of the Sun. We spent many, many, many years there. We've lived in Washington now for 9 years, but we were in Arizona for almost 18 prior. It was 17 years. So yeah, it's a very busy time for me. Lots of good things going on. I've got a kid graduating here in a few weeks. So we're wrapping up sports seasons here soon. So that part will be good to get that done. But now it's about packing and purging. So I was going to get my nails done and make them look all fancy because Tessa told me that's what it means to be legit as a video content creator and a scrapbooker when you're doing stuff with your hands. I was going to go get my nails done. I'm not normally the kind of person who worries about that. But then yesterday I was in the garage. I was doing stuff in the garden. I realized this is why I don't do my nails. I would have had them chipped already. So we'll see. Maybe one of these days I will pop on and I'll have some glamorously looking nails that are just all beautiful and so forth. But we'll see. All right. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. I will see you next week for Scrapbook Live. But if you have any questions in the meantime, be sure to send me a message and I'll do my best. Thanks for watching.